We begin with amateur radio check-ins on the Roodepoort repeater 145.625. Let's hear who is out there. If you wish to join by Zoom, please, you can log in now. Zoom is open. If you do not have the Zoom link, contact me on WhatsApp 082-859-2684, and I will send you the link with the greatest of pleasure. So let's now continue with the radio amateur check-ins. Please provide your call sign. ZS6OPS standing by. Okay, acknowledging peers, ZS6 FPS, and of course we got ZS6 SNY on Zoom, and Frank ZS6 FN also on Zoom. So good evening to all of you. Let's hear if there's anybody else out there. ZS6 OPS standing by. Okay, 1902. Let's see anybody else joining the net yet. ZS6 OPS standing by. $19.03. Anybody else out there? We normally give it until 19:05 before the net kicks off. Let's see if there's any other late check-ins. ZS6 OPS standing by. Okay, Pia, unmute. Let's do an audio check and then we'll continue.
I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Good evening.
Okay, 19:04. Let's do second last call for check-ins. ZS6 OPS standing by. $19.05. Last call for check-ins. ZS6 OPS. Okay, nothing else heard. Let's make sure that everything is ready and start off by saying, George, just check there's a new link. There is a new link. George, send me a message. Tell me if you can hear my message. Otherwise, I'll have to dekey and just reply to you on WhatsApp. Otherwise, Adrian, just tell him there's a new link on WhatsApp or Pierre, please. Okay, greetings to one and all and welcome to this week's net. This weekly net is broadcast every Sunday evening at 1900 and is broadcast on selected amateur radio frequencies as well as Zoom for the benefit of the members of the public. Everyone is welcome to join in and participate via either of these platforms. I would like to remind all amateur radio listeners who have not checked in that you do not need to be a member of any group or club to check in or to use the repeater or any other amateur radio bands. All that is required from you is that you have a valid amateur radio license issued by ECRN. This license issued by ECRN grants you the right to use any of the amateur radio bands at any time without the need to acquire permission from anyone else. Okay, ZS6 IPS returning. That's the joys of working with split screens. You've got a D key to move to somewhere else. Just like to acknowledge George. ZS6 GRG has also joined us now on Zoom. Continuing, also be advised that this weekly net is not broadcast for the benefit of radio amateurs or disaster relief cert volunteers only, but it is open to all the members of the public as well. I therefore would like to encourage everyone to share the weekly net's Zoom link with everybody that they know on social media and through all other kinds and methods, manners, social media platforms throughout the country, and we can grow the net by doing so. This in turn will contribute to disseminating information as far and wide as possible. I'd also like to welcome Lawrence. I just ran out of space on the paper as well. Lawrence has also joined us on Zoom. Good evening, Lawrence. Okay, moving on. Let's look at the COVID-19 figures for this last week. Globally, the reported COVID-19 figures are now sitting at 621,241,866, compared to last week's figure of 617,963,716. This equates to a total of 3,278,150 new cases having been reported in this previous week, compared to 3,170,418 reported last week. You know, guys, at the end of the day, that's 107,732 increase in this last week, whereas the previous week's increase was 79,000. So slightly higher. Again, it could just be due to the way that the countries are in actual fact reporting on their COVID testing. As I've said in the last couple of weeks, or try to remind the listeners that several countries have adjusted their testing protocols, testing and reporting protocols, and South Africa has been one of them. Now, on COVID-19, global death toll. Let me clear the timeout timer. Okay, ZS6 OPS returning. COVID-19 global death is now sitting at 6,556,107 compared to last week's total of 6,546,663. This is an increase of 10,244 deaths in this last week. Again, slightly higher compared to the previous week's 10,023. So not that much higher on the death toll. Now, South Africa, on the other hand, has seen an increase in new cases for the weekend in 5th of October 2022, which is actually week 39. This week, a total of 1,590 new cases were reported, with only only 7 deaths have been reported. Compared to the previous week's total of 1,532 new cases and 18 deaths. That means that this week we went or saw an additional 58 new cases compared to the previous week, a decrease of 11 deaths compared to the previous week's figures. And for some reason, Lawrence keeps on dropping off here. So I think he might have a bit of a bad connection his side. Let's have a look at what's happening here. I did want to actually state that as far as the South Africans figures were concerned, the positivity rate was about 4.6% of those that were in actual fact tested. Next point is our monkeypox figures. This is still on an increase globally, now with a total of 71,237 cases in total this week, compared to the previous week's total of 68,265. If you take a look at the number of cases, the increase this week is 2,900 compared to 3,300. So it looks like we're averaging about 3,000 cases per week. South Africa is still sitting at 5 cases, to the best of my knowledge, as I have not received or seen any reports that are stating that there's been any new cases as such. You know, as the saying goes, no news is good news. So let's hope that it actually stays that way. Okay, ZS6OPS returning after clearing the timeout timer. I saw a report this morning, funny enough, in the Business Insider, that the new mayor of Joburg has called for a water revolution. You heard me right. That we need a water revolution, whereby he believes that the 1.6 million households in Joburg should have a JoJo tank. Whether the city intends to install these tanks or whether the residents will be required to do so at their own cost is what we will have to wait and see how this plays out. However, the estimated figure is about 3.6 billion to ensure that 1.6 million households in actual fact have got JoJo tanks. But what caught my attention on this subject was not political in nature, but rather the crisis within which we find ourselves. The need of ensuring that this city, that is the city of Joburg alone, let alone the country, has sufficient volunteers who are trained to assist our communities, is really a matter to be seriously considered and addressed. What's interesting to note is that we are now at a stage 2 watershedding as of this past week. This is due to the load shedding causing pumping issues, which does not replenish water to the towers. The impact on this on households, where people who are not able to fetch water of their own accord, I must admit, is of major concern to me. In addition to this, the fact that there are 1.68 million households, and that I think was at the Stats SA figure of 2018, in Joburg is also of concern. And where my estimate for the need of 1,000 disaster relief CERT volunteers in Joburg alone may well be an underestimate of proportional note. And for the CERT volunteers monitoring and listening, I can assure you this will be an agenda item with the board of directors in due course. Moving on, not only do we need the volunteers, we as a community need to have a plan. So for more information on this subject and topic, guys, ZS6OPS returning after clearing the timeout timer. For more on this subject, to all listeners and other interested parties, please feel free. You may contact me on 082-859-2684. I'll give that to you again, 082-859-2684. Yeah, I can just see you right here, amateurs, sitting there saying, why does he keep on putting this number out there? We are radio amateurs, we know how to get hold of it. Guys, there's a lot of other people that are listening on the frequencies. and I'm reaching out and appealing to them to make contact with me. So please don't be shy. Don't be like radio amateurs. Please don't be shy. Okay, there we go. I have nothing else to add except maybe one point. India has had a major landslide. So there are some search and rescue operations underway there. And I think it's Pakistan that they are still busy looking for many of the lost people as a result of the recent flooding. And of course, Miami, those islands of Miami, they got totally wet with Hurricane Ian coming through. They are still without electricity, still without any running water. So they really and truly are having a hard time at the moment. Okay, in closing, I'd like to encourage everyone that is listening to also register as a CERT volunteer. Now, let's see if there are any late check-ins who wish to be added to this week's check-in list. ZS6 OPS standing by. Pia, is Christelle with you?
Yeah, Chad, she is here. Let me just find her quickly.
Okay, so let me just acknowledge ZS6 Papa Mark, ZS6 JFK, and I do believe that Crystal is listening in the background there on Zoom. Mr. Koos, I think you must give me a call again on WhatsApp when you get a moment, maybe while you're traveling between two particular points. Okay, are there any further check-ins for this week's Weekly Net? ZS6 OPS standing by. Yeah, I think some people are still shy or intimidated or otherwise. But all things being considered, I'd like to thank all of those who have checked in this week, as well as those who have joined in via Zoom. Now, as the COVID-19 pandemic is still ongoing and infecting millions weekly, please remember to physically distance yourself and to wear a mask in order to protect others, especially the elderly who could lose their lives if infected. And it's always best to sanitize or wash your hands on a regular basis, whether we have a pandemic or not. So for the week forward, the week ahead, be safe, be prepared, and of course, be happy. This is ZS6 OPS now releasing 145.625 for general use. Cheers all. Well, that's been the best turnout in a good couple of months. We've had 8 check-ins tonight, so you Wallies can go and unmute your microphones. Okay, Mr. Adrian, I've got a question for you.
Go.
I'm going to keep it on the recording here. This is for the benefit of everybody.
Not a problem.
When listening to the shortwave portion of these radios,
Yeah.
what mode are we actually listening to?
Are you listening to a standard broadcast band transmission?
Well, for example, okay, the FM and AM, that's self-explanatory. But let's say, for example, I'm picking up a station here at 4.95 megahertz.
The radio is in AM mode usually.
No, it's this radio's got 3 modes: AM, FM, and shortwave.
Shortwave and AM and amplitude modulation. You've got 2 types of modulation techniques: frequency modulation, amplitude modulation, of course, then SSB. single sideband. Okay, and if it is not FM on those type of radios, it's amplitude modulation, even if it says SW.
Okay, so I'm bringing that up specifically for the recording. I wonder what happened to Lawrence now. Hold on a second. Let me just, I'm going to stop this recording. Hello, Christel. I wanted to know if you were there.